The opening scenes are running right now. That's why everybody's quiet. See. All right, you guys, it is Camron Hurt here, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 1 of Black News Briefing. That's right. We are back for another season where you guys get to get all of your latest news stories right here from me. We are here live coming to you from Uptown Social in Tampa, Florida, which is a Black-owned business right off of Fowler. So if you're out here, come stop by. Uptown Social, best mango lemonade you're going to get in your life. Fried Oreos, forget about it. Churros are everything. Stop by, swing through. We're not just going to talk good food today. We're going to get into the latest news stories that are affecting us in our community, as well as we're going to be talking about an overarching theme of World War III in the Black community. What does that even look like? What does that mean? Why is anybody even saying World War III? Is it even possible? Is it plausible? Let's answer those questions, all right? So we're going to get into our first segment of the day with the hot topics. Let's go. All right, first up on our current events topics, we're going to be talking about Judge, soon to be Justice, Ketanji Brown Jackson. Everybody give her a round of applause. First Black woman on the Supreme Court. And we couldn't be prouder. Judge Jackson actually comes from the inner city of Miami, Florida. Shout out to Miami. And she was recently confirmed to be the next justice on the Supreme Court. She will be the first ever, let me say that again and be careful because there's glass on the ground. She is the first ever Black woman to sit on the Supreme Court. And she was able to get her confirmation with a Senate vote of 53 approvals, including 3 Republicans who crossed party lines to support Judge Jackson in her nomination and her confirmation. And I think that's a very important thing to note. I think that's something that we have to pay attention to, okay? We're all very scarred in our community from Republicanism in general, okay? If you look at it any type of way, Republicans and African Americans at times, especially in modern times, have been very contentious. We took it to a whole new level of contingency when we brought in Donald Trump. So we've been worried as a community. We've been weary as a community of the Republican Party and what they could do to us. But I think it's important to note that when we stop talking to the Republican Party, we can almost guarantee our own defeat. The fact that 3 Republicans cross line, that's nothing to shake a stick at. Those are Republicans that we want to talk to our white friends or our Latino friends who still want to vote Republican. Hey, back Republicans like those, though. We can work with them, as opposed to backing, say, a Matt Gaetz or Marjorie Taylor Greene or Ron DeSantis. You know, any of those clowns, yeah, we don't want them. Give us some serious politicians. And we have to understand and we have to respect that the Republican Party is actually built on noble ideals. Now, in practice, they come across bigoted, racist, and elitist. But that's more of the players involved, not really the ideas of the actual community and the actual party itself. So definitely huge on that. However, Republicans will never, ever miss a chance to show their behinds, ever. So after the confirmation of Judge Jackson, the Republicans in the Senate, all except for our good guy, Mitch McConnell, which me saying good guy, Mitch McConnell is weird that he's become the good guy in the Republican Party. Not Mitch McConnell. Oh, my God. Definitely not that man. I'm sorry. I meant to say our good guy, Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney stayed in the chamber and celebrated Judge Jackson's confirmation along with the rest of the Democratic Party and the entire Congressional Black Caucus that was in the room for that. Today, she announced her confirmation at a ceremony in the Rose Garden, and it was presided over by the first ever Black Asian woman vice president that we had. So historical moments all around. So let's jump right into the next topic. Let's talk Elon Musk. This guy has been doing the most this week. All right. So as if buying Twitter wasn't enough, he decided to launch the grand opening of his new headquarters in Austin, Texas. Oh, and appropriation was full in effect. You know what I'm talking about, because he's wearing down-home country boots. He's got his tight jeans on, and he's definitely got the Garth Brooks hat rocking. But isn't Elon from South Africa? Isn't Elon like Dutch? Isn't Elon like super, super rich? Not now, but he's always been rich. Like his family was rich. His family's family was rich, and then they were rich some more. What you know about putting on cowboy boots and doing work? I'm just asking for the people. That's it. The next thing, though, is about Elon is he bought about 9% of shares in Twitter. Now, 9% doesn't seem like a lot, but when it costs you about $3 billion, it's a lot of money. I definitely don't got it in my bank account to be spending. But that also makes him the largest shareholder in Twitter right now. And he's been invited to sit on the board, which we know without a doubt he's going to take that opportunity. He's not a fool. Why does that matter, though? What does Elon Musk having majority share in Twitter really say? I think that it'll say that we will for sure see a return of some of our favorite politicians who've been banned. Elon has proudly spoken out against how Twitter banning people really violates the First Amendment, and they're inconsistent with it. And I have to agree with him there, shockingly enough. I usually don't agree with Elon on much except for Teslas and this right here. It makes no sense to me that Donald Trump is banned from Twitter, yet the Communist Party of China, who's carrying out a massive genocide on Uyghurs, still have access to their Twitter. It makes no sense to me that Donald Trump is banned from his Twitter, but Marjorie Taylor Greene, who blasted anti-Semitic tropes about laser beams from space being from Jews, which is causing she's still like, where's the line, Twitter? If there's one good thing I would say that I'm hoping will come from Elon, it will be that it would definitely be that he is able to set strong guidelines, something that we can all see. When you cross this line, this is it. Now, I'm hoping that we just don't get rid of lines and it becomes a free space for anything, because there is hurt in words, and hate can be carried. Dog whistles are real, and violence can be begotten just from words. So I want us to always remember that and really pay attention to what Elon does next. All right, we're going to switch over to our next story of the night. And we're going to be talking about Ukraine and the ongoing war that we have going on in Ukraine. What you're looking at right now is a vote from the United Nations Human Rights Council that Ukraine was actually just Russia was actually just kicked off of. Now, I want to leave this image on the screen. I want you guys to pay attention to the countries that either abstained, which would be indicated by a yellow X, or the countries that voted against kicking Russia off the Human Rights Council, which is indicated by a red line. What you will see is that most of the countries that abstained are primarily African countries and or Far Eastern, Southeastern Asian countries. The reason for this, many people see that and they're like, oh, okay, Black countries are supporting Russia. Like, there's a reason for that. Let's look into what they're doing. There's no reason for that. The reason for that is because Russia still operates as a phantom colonizer of Africa. Russia has over four different mercenary groups stationed in Africa. Since Vladimir Putin has been in office, he has been responsible for over 3 African overthrows of their governments. African money is tied to Russian money and vice versa. Why is that? Well, we can really thank the Cold War for that. At the time when the Cold War happened and Africa was developing its independence and getting carved up, the USSR made good to come in and make sure that Africa was well taken care of and seen as a friend. They also bought the idea of communism. Communism inherently doesn't upset Africans. What belongs to one belongs to all. It's all for the many. It's a concept that we've lived by without the name communism for eons. But when they put a name to it and they say, hey, you can have a government based off of this and we'll back it, African countries jump to that. It didn't work out in practice. You can just ask dear old Somalia. When Somalia back in 1960s went to war with Ethiopia in the Ethiopian-Somali War, also known as the Ogden War, Russia vowed to back Somalia, who is going to be a socialist government, a beacon of hope in East Africa. When they saw that it couldn't be fruitful for them anymore, they moved on. And guess who they began supporting? The Somalis' enemies in the war, the Ethiopians. Russia is in it for whoever is in it for them. And you see this time and time again. So I would not tell anybody to look at African countries as abstention or as voting against as a green light for Russia. What African countries are doing is sending a very clear signal. This is a European issue, and we don't have nothing to do with it. The African Union is also sending a signal of why in the world will we go get in your wars when you guys don't help us here? And that's also what we're hearing, though, from West Asia as well. You're seeing India take a very strong stance of neutrality, despite having good business relationships with both countries. You're seeing Vietnam stay out of it. You're seeing a lot of countries who are really kind of tired of Western people dog whistling human rights and what the world should care about. Because you will see that a country being violated, sovereign borders being violated, that's not new. We see that every Ramadan when Israel goes into Palestine for no reason at all. We see it all the time. We see it right now in Tigray. We see it all the time. This isn't new. Children's bodies on the ground, sadly, is not new for most of the world. Most of us have been living with it for a while. What's interesting, though, is the revisionist history that Europe seems to paint during this time of Europe being such a peaceful continent, a beacon, a safe space. Europe would be reminded that it was less than 30 years ago that their continent was rocked by the bombs of NATO during the Bosnian War. Europe should be well reminded that some of the largest genocides in history happened on their continent, under their rule, under their watch. And every world war was started in Europe. The question is, how much is the international community, now knowing all this, now that information is readily available, how much are they willing to buy in before they're ready to move on? All right, let's go into our next topic. From there, we're going to come back to that one, though, because we're going to end up talking about the implications of what World War III could look like. So next topic coming up, let's talk about Black Lives Matter for a second, all right? I really want to get into this one. Breaks my heart. So Black Lives Matter founder reportedly used donations to buy $6 million California mansion. So she collected this money right after the death of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery. And the founder had been doing work within the community for years. However, she decided to take this money and buy a house. Now, this house was supposed to operate, get this, as an influencer house. Yes, that's right. We have long missed the days of walking in the street saying we shall overcome. No, we're going to do it on TikTok now for $3 million or $6 million, whichever. I don't know. Make it make sense to me too. However, no influencers ever went there. Shortly after the purchase, she and her staff resigned, and the house has sat empty for most of the year without any use. $6 million. $6 million that probably came from the Black and brown community. $6 million that probably came from working middle class to lower middle class to upper middle class. $6 million. $6 million. I want that to sink in, because we're fighting two wars here. We're not just out here saying how we would like to see our country run. We're not just out here saying how we would like to see things happen. We're saying that we can do it, give it to us. Well, when we get it, what do we do with it? Really? What do we do with it? Out of all the bail funds, where's that money at now that protests have calmed down? Where is it? How much is going back into our school systems? 6 million? If you divided that 6 million into 500,000 and you gave that to as many schools as you could in LA, what would that do for inner city schools? What would that do for schools in Compton? What would that have done for schools in Inglewood? We have got to hold our own accountable, and we've got to be hard when we do it, because we know once they leave our court, the court of the world will not be any easier. We have got to be accountable, and you cannot use us and our suffering to make money. That should never be acceptable. That should be always held accountable. But honestly, you guys, this seems to be a common thing within Black Lives Matter. The Black Lives Matter president in New York last year did something extremely similar. And after pressure, she stepped down. Again, it's the impropriety. It's the appearance of impropriety that we can't work with. We can't be worried about fighting each other internally and also having to deal with what we have externally as well. We need good boards on all of these fast startup nonprofits that we have. Get a great board to help safeguard so there isn't any mismanagement. Don't get you yes men, get you no men, because then you'll get better. All right, you guys. So that's my little rant on that one. I'm going to try to keep it light. I'm trying to keep it going. Let's get into anti-critical race theory. We talked about critical race theory. We've heard that so much, but what is anti-critical race theory? So the exact, like what it says. It's people who are against critical race theory, but now they're trying to turn it into a doctrine and a policy. In Kentucky, the state house and the state senate both passed a law to allow for anti-CRT to be taught in school. And what anti-CRT does, and its basis upon doing my research, show me that it rejects the idea that one is guilty just because they belong to a certain group that may have done atrocities in the past. I get with it. I get that. As a Muslim man, when you see something going on in the Middle East, don't come to me and ask me about that. That ain't got nothing to do with me. That's not me. If you are talking about Black people in their entirety, that's not me. You have to talk specifically to me, so I can get why someone wouldn't want to do that. However, this is the part that gets me. It goes on to say that America, while having did horrible things, is not the sum of those things, and it should not be looked at through that lens. Okay, tell me it's revisionist history without telling me it's revisionist history, because here goes the problem I have with that, because it specifically states slavery and the time of Jim Crow after. How do you just get rid of most of American history like that? I'm not saying that the treatment of African Americans is most of American history. I'm saying, how do you get rid of over 300 years of American history? So where are we starting at? Why does the goalpost keep changing? What is scary about saying that the founding fathers were wrong? What's scary about saying that the Constitution is imperfect because the people who made it, the people who made the system, had one demographic in mind to operate in that system, and that was white men? So how is it not wrong? How is it supposed to be so sacred and not touchable? These are the things that we're continuing to ask ourselves. The problem that I have with anti-CRT is that there's an old saying that Republicans, they fall in line. And I think we're going to see that in a massive scale. I think you can tie this to Republican legislation that we've seen with LGBTQ plus rights. I think you can tie it to legislation that we've seen in even just on abortion rights. I think we'll see that the only thing that stopped this from being a law, the only reason why your Black friend, your Black child, your Black cousin in Kentucky is not going to learn this revisionist history is because Kentucky, in a miracle, pulled off getting a Democratic governor for the first time. Well, first time since Reconstruction. For the first time. Your vote matters. Your vote is important. Your vote is needed, and it's coming. The time is coming for you to vote. And we're going to be talking to you guys about that all season long and making sure that you guys are registered to vote and you guys know what you're doing. Make sure you guys know where to go. Make sure you guys know who you're voting, where your voting districts are. All that information we're going to be providing to you guys throughout the season. We're getting ready for November starting today. Believe that. All right. And lastly, I want to get into Ukraine real quick and war crimes in Ukraine. This is going to take us right into our topic. The war in Ukraine has been going on now for about 6 weeks. And what you're seeing are images from a recently liberated city in Ukraine. What they found in this city were children dead with gunshot wounds. You're seeing it's graphic. What you found were young men shot dead, women shot dead, hands tied, shot dead. You found bodies, hundreds, in single graves in front of a church. In front of a church. There's a new video that was released that shows a woman who was biking during the occupation. She just decided to get on her bike to go get some food, her daughter said. Her daughter told her, don't go, it's not safe. She said, no, it'll be fine. I'm just going to go get some food. She got on a bike. Russia fired from a tank at a woman on a bike. This is why the UN took that step to remove them from the Human Rights Council. How can you sit on a council while you're violating human rights? It doesn't make sense. Well, Ukraine isn't exactly innocent either. Ukraine, outside of the city of Bucha, they found some wounded Russian soldiers on the ground. Very badly wounded, unconscious, but breathing and bleeding out on the street. Ukrainian soldiers recorded themselves mocking the soldiers before they took turns shooting them. And they didn't die instantly, but they took turns shooting them until they died. Russia's now sounded the alarm and said, hey, what about Ukraine? What about these human rights violations? They're human rights violations. They are. There's no question about it. It's wrong. You should not do that. I don't know that I have the moral conviction to tell people who were sitting in their homes and then all of a sudden their homes started getting rocked with bombs as they saw their loved ones die, as they say goodbye to their dads, as they say goodbye to their sons, as they say goodbye to their uncles, as they say goodbye to their cousins, say goodbye to their friends, their boyfriends, whatever it was, whatever the case may be, as they said goodbye, just to see the ones who stayed behind, the innocent children, the innocent women, be murdered. I don't know what that does to somebody's psyche. I don't know how it makes people snap, but I do know that for every action, there will be a reaction. So let's talk World War III. So when we look at World War III and what we've been hearing about it, oh my God, World War III. Oh my God, I'm going to have to enlist. Oh my God, am I going to be drafted? I've had so many people ask me if I'm going to be drafted. Relax. Not yet. But as it is World War III too far of a stretch? I want to pull up a graphic real quick and show you how many countries right now are in conflict and what type of conflicts they are. You'll note that there are over 36 international wars right now. The first image that you're seeing is showing you territorial disputes. Right now, we have territorial wars going on in Russia. We have territorial dispute in Kurdistan and Turkey, Israel, Palestine. We have civil wars going on in Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, Libya, and South Sudan. We also have the U.S.-Iranian Cold War conflict that is going on right now. We also have the India-Pakistan conflict that is going on right now. Most people don't know about that. Again, India went into a sovereign part of Pakistan and took it over. Same thing that Russia did to Ukraine. Not even half of the attention. Why? So we're going to go ahead and remove that image. But when we talk about world wars, there has to be a great number of conflicts, right? And we've got a good amount. But this conflict's been going on for 6 weeks. We've seen it build up. We've seen it die down. Is it hype? What is it? Like where are we going with this? I want to run some facts for you guys real quick, okay? Do the math in your head. I'll try to do it out loud for you. Let's go back to World War I. In June of 1914, the Archduke of Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary was murdered by a Syrian assassin. In July, 1 month later, Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia. A month after that, Germany invades. Then we have, in the same month, Austria invades Russia. So Within 3 months of the initial conflict, we're talking about 90 days, we see 4 countries get involved in a conflict. By May of 1915, Germany sinks the Lusitania. The Lusitania was a civilian cruise ship. Think Carnival Cruise. All right, going from New York to Heathrow. And it was sank by German submarines. The U.S. issued a strong warning at the time. The U.S. at the time was still out of the war, letting Europe handle its war. But the U.S. said you cannot start indiscriminately sinking civilian ships. Germany said, cool, we won't do it no more. So we are now a year into this war before America makes its first real threat of, hey, I may enter this. February 1st. All right, on May 7th of 2015, they sink the Lusitania. February 1st of 2017, 2 years later, it's been a long time. We're still at war. This war now has been going on for 3 years. It's depleting resources, depleting money. We've got to end this war soon. Germany starts back sinking civilian ships in February. Come February 3rd, after Germany sinks a ship on February 1st, the U.S. ends all official relations with Germany. 1917, February 3rd. On April 6th, the U.S. declares war on Germany and enters the First World War. Let's look at World War II. In 1939, let's talk about Russia again. In 1939, Germany decides to go into Poland. Poor Poland gets hit on the other side because Russia decides to go into Poland too and officially start World War II. It would be another 2-3 years before America gets in the war in 1941, December 7th, 1941, after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. So let's talk relevance. Let's talk why these things are important. What we see is, one pattern that we see is that America is never quick to join a world war, ever. There's a lot of bravado about us Americans, warmongers. We just like to take over things. We like to shoot guns and all this, but we're really cautious before we've ever gotten in a world war. I think what you see right now with the Biden administration is the same type of caution. What you'll also notice is that America needs a reason to sell its people back home. And usually it's the loss of American lives. I don't know if America's waiting for Americans to die in mass numbers before we get into this conflict. I don't know, but it would stand to reason that we would. We didn't get into World War I until civilians were getting killed in passenger ships. And we didn't get into World War II until, the people of Hawaii were just bombed for no reason at all. So what's going to be, if there is to be a World War III, and if America is going to get involved, and if America is to follow her playbook, what would it take? What would it take? Russia has started to indiscriminately kill civilians by masses, I would say, for the past 2 weeks. Today, sadly, we saw Russians, shell a train station of mostly women and children trying to leave. We all know what those train stations are for. Nobody on this earth at this point doesn't know what people in Ukraine are using those train stations for. Everybody's trying to get out. Is this going to be enough? Is this going to be enough to make America have to really reconcile with what's going on in the world and how long you can stay out of it? And as Black people, why should we even care? Like, that's a war. Why do we? If they'll do it to themselves, they'll do it to us too. And don't you ever forget that. Don't you ever forget that. Also realize that the future of the world's wealth is currently invested in Africa. If there is any type of global conflict, if there's any type of partial conflict, if there's any type of regional conflicts within these capitalistic nations, within these money-hungry nations, within these hegemonic nations, somebody has a lot to stand from winning Africa. And you think that Africa has the resources right now and the means to resist the West and or China? China, who has already begun an economic imperialism that we've never seen on this earth before. For all intents and purposes, the recolonization of Africa, in my opinion, is going on right now. It's just going on economically. We hear so much talk about oil right now because of Russia and what they have. We hear so much talk about gas. All that stuff can come from Africa. So why doesn't it? Why does the West and the East feel that they should fear a strong African continent? I don't have that answer. But what I can tell you is both sides seem to be acting like they are really afraid of Africa and they want Africa under their thumb. I don't trade one racist for another. I will never trade one master for another. It's not that deep. I'm free. I'm going to be free. So I'm freely think too. So don't be caught up in your anger seeing that Ukrainians are racist. They are. Okay. I'll give you guys a fun fact. The most diverse nation in this country, nationality-wise, and I think ethnicity too, is the United States of America. You know why that's significant? Because when it actually comes to reading interethnic, interracial relations, we lead the world. So if you go to any non-Black country, I'd say you'd be challenged to find a place least racist than this. Facts. And I also want to bring this to the table too. If Ukraine's racist, and Ukraine was once a part of Russia, and Vladimir Putin has even made the statement that Ukraine does not really exist. It's not a real country. It's always been Russia. Where'd they learn racism from? We're all upset about possible Ukrainian racism. Okay, it happens. I get that it sucks that it happens, but we're not going to talk about Vladimir Putin calling Barack Obama a monkey. We cool with that? That's what it is? I'm just saying. Just ask it. Tell me. It's not that you have to excuse racism in Ukraine, but you do not have to adopt the attitude of the oppressor when you get the chance to. It's not us. We don't have to do that. We don't. If a blonde-head, blue-eyed white child is murdered in cold blood, it is a crime against humanity. Period. Full stop. My answer does not change. It is a crime against humanity. And you will see my Blackness hold up humanity. You will see my Blackness express humanity. And you will have to reconcile that humanity comes from a Black man in this moment. And that's power. That's how you go forward. Again, I'm not saying you have to do anything drastic. You don't have to go and donate money to the Ukraine, nothing. But you have to remember that what happens in Europe, if it can happen there, it will come to us. And it's a predecessor. It's a predecessor. It was a predecessor in World War I when they first went into Serbia, later on went into Africa. It was a predecessor in World War II when they started off between Austria, Germany, Russia, Poland, and then it ends up being fighting in Northern Africa too. Why is this? For World War III to happen, in my opinion, based off of the information that we have today, I would say that you would definitely need a reason to bring NATO in. If NATO gets involved, then you have your conflict. But I don't think Russia will find many friends coming to their aid, sadly. You see, India, they got to remain neutral on this. Their largest trading partner for weapons is Russia, but they've developed a strong tie with America since the 2000s to import economic goods, merchant goods. China, well, China's got a lot going on right now. You see, they're in their worst financial crisis in 30 years. China is also dealing with their zero COVID policy completely failing. Think of China as being where we were in August of 2020, because that's exactly where they are. And their people are sick of it. Their people are sick of extreme lockdowns. They're sick of extreme detention centers being, massed as quarantine facilities. They also have uprisings going on in Tibet. They have the continued genocide in the west of the Uyghurs. It is important for China to get China under control. If China was under control, we'd see a bigger presence. They would have violated sanctions by now. China can't afford to do that now. Also, with the might of the European Union all coming together, it's kind of scary for them. And China doesn't have many friends either. Not that America should think that she has any friends either, because one thing that the world is waking up to is our war crimes in Iraq. If there's anything this conflict is showing me, nobody's listened to America because we have blood on our hands from Iraq, and rightly so. They shouldn't. I understand. But If Vladimir Putin keeps isolating himself, if he keeps these malicious attacks, he is going to force the hand of somebody in Europe. Somebody in Europe is going to have to do something. If another country comes in to help Vladimir Putin, say a Belarus, sends a military, then it stands to reason that a European army is going to want to answer in kind, because now it's not just two. It's like, we all know the rules. Don't jump in. Don't jump in. Now, your friend was big and bad, and he jumped stupid, and he's not winning now. You got to sit here and let this rock. If you don't, we can all pull up together, though. Belarus don't want it. Belarus also don't have the money for it. If they get hit with the sanctions that Russia did, they'll be bankrupt by tomorrow, and Russia can't afford to take them in and make sure they're good. These are all things that we have to look at in the upcoming months, in the upcoming years. You see, World War III isn't just a sexy title. It's not just clickbait. It's a process. It's a situation. And we're in the very beginning of the situation. And I'm giving you the things to look out for. Look out for more killing of civilians. Look out for other countries aiding. Look out for other countries trying to even get involved. All these things are going to be pertinent in the months, in the weeks, months, possibly years to come. The Defense Secretary of the United States told Ukraine to strap in because you're in for a long haul. And they are. But Ukraine is getting weapons from the West that has been able to help them still hold on to the sovereignty of their country. In a world where we see things on social media and they start and stop right then, do we really know what it's like to sit through an active conflict for, years instead of days? Think about it. Afghanistan fell after U.S. troops left within a week. We think about the Iraq War. The invasion of Iraq was pretty much complete within the first month. But this war, where the superpower is having to retreat from positions, what happens when a big bully is getting whooped? They get scared and they get desperate and they do desperate things. Pay attention to how desperate Russia gets, and that'll tell you whether or not we have to look out for World War III. All right, you guys, that's it for tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You guys have a great night, and we'll see you back here next week, 8 p.m. Thursday night. Have a great one.